Hello GC family, my name is Kelly and I would like to let you guys know that we have prayer every Thursday at the station from 5:30 to 6:30. Bring along your whole family and friends so you can grab an affordable meal at the cafe. And thank you for giving to the GC family so generously. Here are the details up on the screen. Arrows and Awaken, our two amazing youth ministries, meet you every Friday night at the station. We are training and equipping the next generation to stand for Jesus. That's all for the announcement. And next up, we have Stan.
Well, good morning to everybody. Good morning, Glenridge. Great to be with you again. And I'm excited. We've got a wonderful thing happening in the building this morning, and it's called Yes Day. We're in a Yes Day. We are actually wanting to make people, just let people know what's happening, where we can serve, what needs to be done, how we can get behind what God's doing with us, and looking at all the places that we can serve and how we can get involved. And we're trusting it's going to be a great morning. And but I want to come at this idea of kind of getting involved in the community and particularly serving on a Sunday at a bit of a different way. And this comes through something that somebody by the name of Fred Bester, you might know him. He's part of our community. And we had a leaders meeting last week. And he came to me afterwards and he said this. He said, while he was in the leaders meeting, he had this picture of a net. And he felt God say that as the church, as Glenridge Church, we need to make sure that our net is strong, that it's well repaired, that there's no holes in it, that there's no places for the fish to escape from, and that it's also big, because he felt like God is wanting to send a big catch of fish to us. And God's been talking to us over the last couple of years about a harvest and God sending the harvest. And so when Fred said this to me, I thought, man, this is a wonderful picture of the reason why we get to do what we do on a Sunday and why we get to have people in our homes during the week, is because actually while doing that, we are forming a net. We're forming a net in which to catch fish, in which to see God move, to see God catch, and to make sure that nobody is left out. And Fred finished off his word that he felt God say to him by saying this. He said, we've got to think big, because as big as the net is, God will send the fish for. So if we create a small net, God will only send us a small catch. If we create a big net, God will send us a big catch. And so this morning or today, I want to talk about this idea of us being part of a big net that is a strong net that is able to catch lots of fish, that are able to invite lots of people, that are able to host lots of people, that are able to minister well to our children, to whatever context we're in. But we're a net. As a church, it's like we're a net that is able to hold and to catch a large number of fish. Just to remind you, as a church, we really exist. Our mission statement is to love God, love people, and live to change the world. Love God, love people, live to change the world. And really our heart, or our job as a church, is to make followers of Jesus. Our job is to invite people into our midst, that they would have an encounter with God, that they would see God, that have a revelation of God, that they would become followers of Jesus. We want them not to become just followers of Jesus, but we want them to become disciplined learners of Jesus, people that are in training, following Jesus, learning, growing, transforming, changing. You come into the church one way, but actually after a number of years, you're a different kind of person. But more than that, we want followers of Jesus that make other followers of Jesus. And so this is, and we make those followers of Jesus in our neighborhoods and in the nations of the world. And so this is kind of what we are on about as a church. But to get that and to accomplish that goal, we need a net of people, of contribution, of effort and work, so that we can make sure that the catch that God sends us, we are able to hold and to steward and to make disciples of, to make disciplined followers of Jesus that know how to make other followers of Jesus with the nations and in their neighborhoods. And so Fred said this. He said this in his mind, in this word that he said, in his mind, it says everybody should be known by name, by someone at least, and every person should be at a table of connection and ministry during the week. He said for him, that was what this looked like. And I got so excited when he said that, because I really do believe that is what God is wanting. Every person that comes into our church should be known by name by somebody. Not everybody will know everybody's name, but people will be known. But more than that, they would be able to get around a table of connection and ministry at some point during the week, and some point in their lifestyle, in their rhythms during the week, so that they can become these followers of Jesus that we are endeavoring to make. So, with that in mind, I want to read to you Luke chapter 5, verses 1 to 10. And this is a wonderful text about the disciples catching a large catch of fish. So this is, thank you to Fred for your thought here and your kind of direction here. And I want to pick up on this net, this idea of a net. So this is what it is. Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through to 11. On one occasion, while the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, and he saw two boats by the lake, but the fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's, he asked him to put out a little from land. And as he sat and taught the people from the boat, and he sat down and taught the people from the boat. So he goes to Simon and says, "Can I use your boat?" And he pushes out a little bit and says, "I actually want to use your boat to teach the people. I'm getting there's too many people, and they're pressing into me too much." Verse 4. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." So Simon answered, "Master, we toiled all night and took nothing. But at your word, I will let down the nets." And when he had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats, so that they began to sink. But when Simon saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I'm a sinful man, O Lord." For he and all who were there were with him were astonished at the catch of fish that they had taken. And also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you'll be catching men." And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed Jesus. It's a beautiful story of Jesus teaching and being pressed and kind of getting a little bit claustrophobic. I'd imagine coming up to the edge of the water as people are coming closer and closer, coming out onto a boat, seeing there was two boats that were empty there. And the reason why they were empty is because they'd been fishing all night and they were now busy repairing their nets. And so Jesus asks one of the owners, which is Simon, he says, "Simon, can I just get into the boat and just use it as a pulpit in a sense?" And so he pushes back and he begins to teach. And it says, when he had finished teaching, he said to Simon, "Now push out into the deep." And Simon's a bit reluctant. He said, "Listen, we've been fishing all night, and what's the point? We've caught nothing." But he says, "Because you've said it, because you give me that word, because you've said it, actually, I'm going to do it." And they catch this massive haul of fish. They throw out their nets, and they catch a massive haul of fish. And to the point where they have to call in their partners, which are James and John, the sons of Zebedee, come in and help them. And both boats are so full that they're kind of looking like they're wanting to sink. At the sight of this, Simon actually has a revelation that this is not just my master, it's my Lord. He says, in the beginning, he says master, which means boss or leader, my leader or my boss. But by the end of it, he falls on his knees in worship and he says, "My Lord, yes, I'm a sinful man." And Jesus says, don't be afraid. Actually, from now on, you're going to catch fish. And they leave everything and they follow him to be fishers of men, not just fishers of fish. And so this is the story that we're in. So the question that I have for us in connection with kind of what Fred was seeing and feeling from when he was in the leaders meeting. And this text is, I've got this question. What does a miraculous catch need? Or what do we need to have in place to see a miraculous catch of fish? When I say a catch of fish, I'm talking about God's going to send us people that we're meant to enclose in love, that we meant to be hospitable with, that we meant to invite and welcome, and allow God create the space for them to be ministered to and to encounter God in a powerful way, that they become followers of Jesus. And I think you've got to say yes in 5 areas. And that's why we called this a yes day. So we've got to have a yes in our hearts. Now, we've got to have a yes in our hearts in 5 areas for us to see a miraculous catch of fish. And remember, Fred said this, think big. Make sure you've got a big net, because as big as the net is, that's as many fish God will send to us. And so, friends, we've got to be thinking big now. We've got to be thinking generous. We've got to be thinking huge in our mind. We've got to be thinking God is wanting to send fish. God is wanting us to catch a huge, huge haul of fish in these days. The first one is this. You've got to say yes and have an available boat. You've got to have an available boat. You've got to say yes with your boat. Now, this is an interesting one, because when I read this, I thought, actually, many of us have got an available boat for Jesus. So Jesus comes and says, can I jump into your boat with you, Peter? Yes, of course you are, Lord. You're my master. You're my Lord. Come and jump in. And Jesus comes into our boat as a teacher, and he teaches the crowd. But friends, I want to say to us, for many of us that have followed Jesus for many years and that know Jesus at some measure, we're kind of happy to have Jesus in our boat. We're happy to have Jesus. We're happy to be available for Jesus to use us, and especially for him to be in our boat. Kind of it's a beautiful thing to have Jesus in your boat, in your life with you. But I want to say to you, friends, there's more than that. Jesus doesn't want to just get into your boat and use your boat to teach and to preach from. Jesus wants you to use your boats, and he wants you to be catching fish with him. It's not just about having a boat to preach from. It's about using your boat for a miraculous catch of fish. And I think that's where the church has got to, we can't just be available for Jesus to live with us. We've got to have a heart for Jesus to use us, for us to serve Jesus in miraculous ways and to see Jesus come through for us in incredible ways. So the first thing you do is you've got to have an available boat. I think for many people in the church, we would all say, yes, we've got an available boat for Jesus. But that's a good starting point. There's more. The second thing that we've got to say yes to, and we've got to have in place for a miraculous catch, is a prepared net. We've got to have a prepared net. These guys were repairing their nets, and a net that's not prepared, that's got holes in it. In fact, you'll probably see one come on the screen now of a net that's got a hole in it. That net is never going to catch any fish. As soon as there's holes in a net, as soon as those knots and those strands break or there's pieces missing, the fish escape and we miss the fish. And fish that God is sending to us actually get away, and we haven't stewarded it well. So we've got to have a prepared net. You see, when our nets are ready, Jesus can call on them anytime. When our nets are ready, at any moment, we as a community of people are ready to receive a harvest. When our nets are ready, we can hold an event, we can do a conference, we can do something in the city and have a profound catch just because we've got ready nets as a community of people. So what do I mean by that? Well, a net has knots. You know the knots are the net. Every net has kind of got its things, and it's got knots that make up this net that slowly grows and becomes bigger. And those knots are our relationships. Our net is a net of relationships. Our net is a net of connectedness. And the knots that make our net strong are our tables during the week, in our homes, and our serving and contribution that happens on a Sunday. So Unless we've got our tables in our homes operating and our serving and our contribution working on a Sunday, that when the fish come in, that it's a well-prepared net. What happens is people come in and go out, and without anybody asking them their name. People come in and out with anybody ministering to them. Kids come in and out without ever meeting the risen Jesus through you and us, through you and me. And so when I say we've got to have our nets prepared, I'm talking about we've got to make sure our relationships are in place. We've got to make sure our connectedness in place, and that we've got bigger and bigger tables in our homes during the week, and our service on a Sunday is stronger and bigger to catch more people. And friends, the way that you make bigger nets is to tie more knots, is to have more people contributing and connected into the trellis or the lattice that a net makes, that kind of those square boxes that a net consists of. You see, for us to have a prepared net, everybody needs to be knitted in. Not just hanging on the sideline, but actually knitted in. So unless you're knitted into that weave of what a net looks like, you're never actually contributing to the catch that's coming. And no one person can receive that catch. It needs multiple knots that make a big net that catches a big haul of fish. And I want to encourage us as we doing this Yes Sunday, that we say yes to preparing our nets and say yes to being part of a net that is being prepared in our community. Often people change church at the beginning of the year. And often people think, well, you know what, I need a change, I need a thing. And what they think is, no, it's a church, I just need a new church and then everything will be okay. But that's never the case. But it's interesting when people go, especially when they go to a slightly smaller church, they throw themselves in and they're like, yeah, we're serving on a Sunday and we're participating, we're going to give ourselves to it. Friends, you don't have to move church to do that. You just have to get involved. And often what happens at Glenridge Church is, because there's slightly more numbers than in other churches, people think that you don't need my contribution. You assume, well, you know what, you don't really need me because there's so many other people to do it. Friends, I want to tell you, there is not so many other people. You and me and us are it. Everybody needs to be in, and everybody needs to be knitted in. Everybody needs to be part of that knotting and that net for us to catch the haul that God is wanting to send us and is currently sending us. So we've got to make sure that our net is prepared. The third thing is this: we've got to have available fishermen. So we need a boat, we need a prepared net, we need available fishermen. Available fishermen. You see, Peter was in his boat, and when Jesus said, listen, actually, I want to go and catch, I finished preaching now, let's go and catch a fish. Peter's instant response was an excuse why that wouldn't be a good idea. One of the things he said, listen, I've worked all night and I'm tired. I've worked all night. We've been doing this all night and we've caught nothing. I'm actually done. I don't want to fish anymore. He also knew that to catch fish, it had to be at night, not during the day. So this was not only, am I tired, but actually you're doing this at the wrong time, Jesus. Why do it now? It's the wrong time. You know what, friends? It's always the wrong time. I preached a couple of weeks ago from Haggai, and I said, don't procrastinate. Haggai says, don't procrastinate. You know what, friends? We've always got a lack of energy, and it's never the right time to start serving. But you know when the best time to start serving is? Now. He also, you can imagine Peter kind of making this excuse. Listen, what's the point of doing all this? There's so many crowds and so much noise. They're scaring the fish away. I'm not going to do that. Why should we do it? It doesn't make sense to me. He would have said this, but Jesus, we've just washed our nets, ready for tomorrow. Why go and dirty them now? Why not go silt them all up and salt them all up and whatever else when we've got to go ready for tomorrow? You're not going to catch anything now. So Peter, just his instant response is, man, I don't know if this is such a good idea. And maybe in the back of his mind, he's thinking, listen, Jesus, you're a carpenter. You're not a fisherman. You're a carpenter, dude. I'm a fisherman. You're a carpenter. You stick to carpentry and preaching. Let me do the fishing. I mean, you got kind of a million excuses as to what he wants to do. But you know what, friends? I've realized this. A culture of servant-heartedness is deeper than a culture of volunteerism. And even more profound is a culture of obedience is more powerful than a culture of apathy. And what happens with Peter is something happens in Peter where he takes Jesus at his word and he says, listen, Master, because you've said it, I will do it. And he does it very reluctantly, but he does it. And guess what happens? There is a miraculous catch of fish. You see, friends, you've got to have available fishermen. We've got to have a boat. We've got to have a prepared net, but we've got to have available fishermen. And friends, I want to say to you, God lands on availability more than he does on gifting and talent and anointing. Most people, if you're just available to God, he will use you. Even if you're a clay pot, he fills you with amazing treasure to be used. We've got to be available. And I want to encourage us, we've got to say yes, to be available to God, to use us in our homes during the week, around our tables, but serving and creating a net of teaching kids, media, baristering, all that makes us a home needs work and workers and people to do chores, just like we need our kids to do chores at home. It's like we need this to operate, and if everybody plays their part, it's an easy thing. But as soon as there's holes in the net, it becomes a more difficult thing. Number 4. What do we need? Number 1, we need an available boat. Number 2, we need a prepared net. Number 3, we need an available fisherman. And number 4, we need a word from Jesus to catch a miraculous fish, a haul of fish. You know, it was the wrong time of day, it was the wrong place, it was the wrong depth to catch fish, yet Peter obeyed. And the reason why he obeyed is because he got the word from Jesus. Because he said yes to the word of God, because he said yes to Jesus, this miraculous catch that they'd never seen in their lives before was caught. At the wrong place, at the wrong time, everything on the wrong thing. This is what Jesus does. Friends, we've got to be prepared to respond to the word of God, to respond to Jesus at any point if we to catch a miraculous haul of fish. And that's why as a community, we've got to be ready, friends. We've got to prepare our nets. And we've got to prepare our nets on an everyday Sunday, never mind those moments. Imagine if God came upon us and we had 3 weeks of meetings every week because there was just this revival moment happening. And we didn't have a net in place to be able to catch the people. Imagine that, friends. What a tragedy that would be. I think if we got our nets right in the safe country of an every ordinary day Sunday where we're ministering to children profoundly, friends, our children are fish that need to be caught in a powerful net of God's love. It's like our kids, we are overwhelmed with numbers of kids, 150 kids, 200 kids some Sundays that need to be ministered to. And they're not somebody else's kids, they're our kids. They might not be my kids because my kids are a little bit older, but they're our kids. We take responsibility for our kids, not just my kids, because we see that this is a net that's catching people. Number 5, and lastly, we've got to say yes to teamwork. Miraculous catch needs teamwork. It needs partnership. So at some point in our walk with God, to create a net that will catch a miraculous catch a fish, it will require teamwork. It will require teamwork before the event, during the event, and after the event. We see this here where there's so many fish that they had to call partners in. Had to call their partners, James and John, the sons of Zebedee. Please bring your folk. Remember he said there was 2 boats there. Bring that other boat quickly. We need more. We need more. And it says both boats were overladen and sinking. You see, friends, at some point we've got to make sure that we know how to play team, that we can partner with people. And friends, I'm not talking about just on a Sunday in the internal workings of Glenridge Church, but I'm talking about with churches in a city where suddenly there's a miraculous catch that that gets caught in a church, and other churches begin to partner with them to make sure that the catch is taken care of. But friends, that starts with us on a Sunday. We honestly should never, the people of God should never ever battle, should never ever have to motivate in such kind of manipulative ways to get people to volunteer. And I say not volunteer, serve. Because if we understand what God is wanting to do, and listen, serving on a Sunday for an hour or two is kind of not really that much anyway, especially if everybody's doing it, that we only do it 3 or 4 times a year. Because if everybody did it, it really would be simple. The net would just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and would make it so much easier for everybody, rather than, you know that in most churches, this is how it works. 20% of the people carry the load for 80% for the rest of the church. So 20% of the people do the work and 100% benefit. Friends, that is a blight on the church in many respects. It should be the other way. 80% of the people carrying the load, and there's only 20% not yet carrying it. And friends, I want to challenge us in this. We need to say yes to Jesus. We'll get part of the fish. Your boat might be available, but are you willing to go fishing with him? And fishing for us on a Sunday is serving in kids ministry, is hosting and making sure the setup's done well, is making sure that we've got good sound, making sure that we've got good media, making sure that there's worship, making sure that there's coffee and all those things that we need serving in. Friends, I want to encourage us, and especially if you're not going to be here on this Sunday, sign up. Sign up to serve somewhere. Sign up to serve somewhere so that you can be part of the net that catches this incredible, miraculous group of fish. You see, friends, isn't it incredible? When there's a miraculous catch, Peter acknowledges Jesus not just as master or leader or boss, kind of that word. He acknowledges him as Lord. He worships him and he surrenders. He falls on his knees in worship. You see, in an environment where the net is in place and the catch starts coming in, people worship and surrender to God. In an environment like that, which we can all contribute to, in an environment like that, actually what happens is people move from seeing Jesus as some kind of good leader and to worshiping him as Lord. But it takes, what comes first? Is it the net that's ready first, or is it the catch that makes it that? It's a chicken and egg situation. Well, I want to say to you, let's do both. Let's trust God because he's spoken about a harvest. Let's do that. But let's make sure that we've got a net in place that's ready to catch the fish and the harvest that God wants to bring to us as a church. I trust that's encouraging, and I trust that will move us, not manipulate us, will move us into saying yes to God, into saying yes to doing something on a Sunday. Friends, just do something on a Sunday and put your hand up, and let's see what God does with the catch that he wants to bring with us. Bless you and have a cracker day.
Thank you, Stan, for the lovely preach. And stay in touch on our socials like WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you. Have a lovely week.